Jigsaw is the long-awaited... no, it's not. Honestly, it did come out of nowhere. The fact that we're getting a sequel, another sequel to the Saw franchise that was dead. When did the last one come out? I was so certain this thing would have stayed dead forever. 2010 the last one happened, and the series seemed dead. Like they had more or less conclusion and finality, like we're done. Tapping out, going home. We've had like 7 years of dominance of the Halloween season, milking that box office money and chopping up a lot of fucking people. And I will say I'd like to apologize in advance because I really did intend, I wanted to talk about horror movies this month. I did that last year where October was nothing but horror movies. I wanted to do that. Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, the Saw movies to tie in with this new one. That was all planned. It's just life really got in the way. Life threw a bunch of fucking curveballs at me. So yeah, maybe I'll talk about that some other time. But I really, truly did intend to review all the Saw movies. I would like to do that in the future. I need to get my hands on the actual anthology of the franchise. Because I'm a mild fan of the franchise, to be honest. I think that first one is a legitimately good movie. And then the sequels, it's like 2 and 3 count as good movies, more or less, with a lot of concessions to be made. But then like 4, 5, 6, and 3D especially, it's like they're not good. But I want to give them credit for certain things, even though some of them are really bad. Like, I saw Saw 5 in theaters. I was good with it when it came out. But let's just talk about it. Those sequels, and in general the franchise, they're so up their ass with continuity where they'll bring things back that you would never think to remember. And then the absurdity of it at times, where they have such weird logic where... the movies make no sense, and yet they try super hard with the continuity to make things make sense and tie it together and be really clever about it. So it's a weird double thing, because they are at times very clever and other times just insane. And it was all the way back in Saw 3 where John Kramer, aka Jigsaw, died, and then they were able to milk a bunch of sequels with him still being dead, with flashbacks and this and that. And now in this one, to talk about Jigsaw now, it's set 10 years after his death, and it seems the games are continuing again, and it seems John Kramer might be alive. Someone started up all the traps, there's a game being played, cops get involved, and it's the classic Saw thing. It's one of the more preferred Saw plots, if I can say so, is when the cops are trying to catch Jigsaw or the killer or whoever and stop the game, and there's a group of people being tested. I like that because that was like Saw 2, Saw 6, those are the ones I think of where it's the group of people, and I guess the first one had 2 people. The group of people that have to go through these trials. Maybe it's just because if I had to do a Saw trap, I'd rather do it with a bunch of people and work together as a group with teamwork. I would not want to be alone and have to like dig my eye out or cut off my foot. That doesn't sound fun. At least if there's someone else there for some moral support, I'd feel a little bit better. So yeah, let's talk about this movie. The first thing I want to talk about is it's been a good while since we had a Saw movie. And I was not begging for one, I was not waiting when they're gonna come back, but once I heard they did and saw that trailer, it was out of nowhere like, what's this? They're doing it again? Like the surprise of seeing it in a trailer, not hearing about it anything before. It was kind of pleasant in that way. I liked the trailer, I'm like, I'm not a huge fan of these movies, but it's gonna be fun. Like I think of the movies as fun, trashy fun at best. And so I was excited to return to it, and this feels a lot different than the other Saw movies, and I think there's a good reason for that. I'll talk about that in the brief spoiler thing at the end, because I gotta talk about it. But yeah, this feels very much, it's different. The filmmaking style, the way the editing is done, not consistent with the other Saw movies at all. And like I said, I think there's a good reason for that, but yeah. And it has been 10 years, maybe they just felt like, let's not do the crazy over-editing. Someone's doing a trap and we're gonna have spinning cameras and 36 different edits and it's in your face and all this crazy editing filters and screaming and loud noises. And the very traditional classic Saw, like weirdish, dark, greenish, yellow color palette, like that's all gone. This movie wasn't directed by any of the ones who worked on the other ones. It's directed by the Spierig brothers, who worked on 2 Ethan Hawke movies, Predestination and Daybreakers. Haven't seen them, so I don't know. This movie comes to us from the 2 writers behind the Piranha 3D and 3 Double D movies, and one of the writers of Good Luck Chuck. If I knew that beforehand, I'd be so concerned, but after the fact, it's like, well, at least they made one good movie. So yeah, we got some newcomers to the franchise. It feels differently in editing and direction, but the story more or less feels in tone in the same. This franchise is known for its editing slash filmmaking style, which is missing. It's traps and it's twists. Let's talk about the traps first. The traps are, some of them are good, some of them are very lame or just not memorable. They're not good traps in terms of,
you have 60 seconds to remove the thing from your eye to release yourself of the trap before you'll be ripped in half and covered in acid. Live or die, make your choice.
Like, there's no traps like that. They're very different. Like, it is a teamwork thing. Do this and that. But the traps overall, they're the least Saw-like traps out of the whole franchise. It usually had to do with, like, do a certain type of bodily dismemberment or something to release yourself from an even worse bodily dismemberment, which will kill you. That's usually the consistent thing for traps. In this one, it's kind of, you're in a really shitty situation and you might get hurt trying to save yourself, or you'll die, and it's just, like, the traps aren't horrible, but they're not going to be the most memorable ones by far. If any traps are going to be forgotten, it's going to be the ones from this movie, more or less. There's like one or two that's good. And then the twist. Well, I will say, like, overall, considering, should this movie have even been made, it's been gone, the franchise has been dead for so long, was it worth bringing this franchise up, digging its bones out of the dirt, and try reanimate it to make another movie for some more cash, milk that sweet cash? I don't know. It might not have even been worth making the movie, but I feel like the twist at least justifies the logic of the movie itself. It's that Saw logic where it might be a little convoluted, but I'll go with it. Why not? I want to have fun at least. I'm not expecting high art. But just the overall question, should this movie have been made? I wrestle with it myself because I consider, it was fun to sit there and watch it. Like, we're back in the Saw universe and we're going to tell a new story and all this and that. And the way the story's told, how everything wraps up with a twist, I think it's fine. I think it's a decent... Well, okay. As a movie overall, it's probably not that good. In terms of the Saw franchise, it's pretty decent. It was worthwhile enough, I guess. Barely. It's barely worth it, and I feel like overall the twist and what ends up the movie representing and becoming makes it worth being made enough. It's like, okay, that's fine. You can exist. But without that, it probably wouldn't have, because it's kind of an underwhelming Saw movie. It's still, like, it's got the teamwork thing, but just overall the traps, the story they're telling, it's so half and half, because it is kind of bland and dull. It's missing that visual filmmaking recognizable style of the Saw movies, yet I'm kind of happy about that, because I'm not going to have an epileptic seizure while watching the movie. And it feels different from the Saw franchise, but it keeps certain things. But, like, some things are just missing. And I don't know if they really intend on doing any more Saw movies after it. I mean, they could. I can see how they do it. I wouldn't care, but I would be there anyway in hopes of having the smallest amount of fun watching it. Like this one, it's so generic and bland and unmemorable and unremarkable, but it had just enough going for it where I'm like, it's okay. It's fine. And in terms of, like, expectations based on a Saw movie, it more or less clears that barrier. I don't want to be too kind to the movie just because I had low expectations, so I'm trying to actually be judgmental because, okay, the gore is also, that's another thing. Saw movies are known for their gore, and most of them I've seen, I saw one in theaters, and that's it. So I'm probably used to the unrated DVD, Blu-ray versions of them where there's a lot of guts and blood everywhere. It was weird seeing people supposedly, okay, let's see them get eviscerated and just destroyed with machinery and guts and blood everywhere. And a lot of times they were tasteful about it and didn't want to show it, or just showed a small amount of it. It was so weird seeing a Saw movie that didn't have an over-the-top amount of gore and blood. That's weird. It wasn't super gory, it was missing its whole visual filmmaking style, which, from a storytelling point, it eventually makes sense by the end. The acting is not very good. It's not horrible, but it's just, there's no great acting that you'll remember. All the traps are kind of mediocre and forgettable. The movie is just kind of the definition of mediocrity and just bland, like, meh. There's nothing in it that's bad enough to make me go, like, it's a bad, horrible movie, but there's nothing barely good enough to make me even want to be like, you should definitely see it. I feel like if you're a fan of these movies, ironically or not, it's worth one watch at least. It's not a very good movie. It's not that bad, it's just meh. It's just when I think about it, like, there's a few really cool things that actually are like, that's actually clever filmmaking, or logical maybe, but it's just touches that are like, yes, that is smart, I'm glad you did that. Makes sense. I'll talk about that when I do the spoilers, like right now. I would give Jigsaw a C. I had fun enough watching it, and I made the most of it, and I'll probably watch it again with the rest of them. This is probably one of the more accessible Saw movies. It's the least gory, and also when it comes to their continuity and convoluted storytelling, it's one of the least. Like, it's the easiest to hop in. Like, I haven't seen any of the other Saw movies. You're probably going to be just fine. Like, when it's all said and done, there's not, like, weird, remember this character from the 4th movie and what he did in the 7th movie to another person from the 2nd movie. Like, there's no weird tying in of all these weird story strands. It's actually kind of straightforward for the most part, and that's, again, that's weird. Yeah, I'm fine with it. I'm okay with it. It was whatever. I'm okay. But let's talk about some spoilers really quickly. If you don't want to get spoiled, alright, you can leave now. Comment below, tell me your thoughts on the movie if you have seen it. But let's talk about some spoilers really quickly so I can talk about them. So essentially what we find out in the movie, once John Kramer shows up, I was really, like, I was almost pulling my face off. Like, you gotta explain to me quickly how this motherfucker's still alive, when I saw him get his neck sliced in 3 and then, like, cut open and had an autopsy done in 4. I gotta know why he's here, because the people are going through their traps. They keep fucking up and dying and, like, screwing over each other. And he shows up to bring them to the last one. And I'm like, I was paying attention to his look. He had, like, that black and red robe, which I know from, like, Saw 1 and 2 or whatever, he had that. And he had his soul patch. And he talks about, like, if a doctor hadn't told me about my cancer, things might have been better for me and all this and that. And I'm like, did you make a miraculous recovery after dying from cancer? What? I didn't put it together yet. I was like, no, because they're talking about how Jigsaw's been dead for 10 years. How are they doing this? I was getting scared. And then the epic reveal happened. Like, turns out, first off, I almost feel bad for that poor fuck who got screwed over, where he holds the shotgun shell and he's like, these are your keys to your salvation or freedom. And she, like, killed herself trying to kill him and blew up their keys. I was like, you dumb bitch. I feel bad for someone who at least was starting to understand the rules. And he's like, don't do this. It's a trick. Like, he got the rules. He was starting to follow them too late. He got screwed over. But then there's the whole coroner story, and that made me uncomfortable. Like, the girl that's super into Jigsaw and, like, devoted. I was like, that's creepy. She's gonna end up being, like, some new disciple, and she's the one, she's working with Carrie Elways, I'm sure, and they're teaming up to keep Jigsaw's legacy going. It didn't quite go that way at all. Yeah, we find out that that dude was, like, part of Jigsaw's first game. He did that whole practice game out in that barn. I thought that was curious. We're missing the visual filmmaking style of these dank. We're in this weird city full of crime. There's like a billion abandoned warehouses where he can use to do all these weird traps. The weird editing, the green filters on everything. I'm like, this is not Saw. And then I find out it's a prequel. This is taking place before and then after. And then my mind exploded everywhere, and I was like, you got me, you sons of bitches. You earned this movie being made because it's a prequel to everything and a sequel. Good enough. So it turns out the forensics dude was in Jigsaw's first ever game, or like his practice run in a barn in the middle of nowhere. It wasn't in a warehouse. Like, he was still settling into it, and turns out Jigsaw felt sorry for him, like, you know, maybe my morals, this guy probably isn't morally worth dying, so I'm gonna help him. And he becomes a disciple and tries to learn to do Jigsaw's version of justice and all this and that. So it's like Jigsaw's prototype game. They're in a barn in the middle of nowhere. He got his first disciple that would help him out. He was a secret to even, like, Hoffman and Amanda. Okay, I don't care about that continuity. But that whole farmhouse thing plays out, and we find out at the end, like, yeah, those people, that was 10 years ago. This whole cop scenario with the forensic guy, this is him. He just recently redid a game like that to get the cops involved and all this and that, because it turns out that cop's a dirty asshole who's responsible for people dying. And so it's a whole moral Jigsaw thing. So the guy's picking up 10 years after John's death to take down that cop. And I don't know if they want to do a new franchise where Forensic Guy is going to continue his legacy of Jigsaw, or it was just for this movie. Because it is clever enough, because I was so concerned about John Kramer coming back from the dead. And it's like, Jigsaw's been dead for 10 years. It's like, yes, he has. And I was at his first ever thing, and now I'm helping him. And by the way, I'm going to laser you to death. That was interesting that they had lasers. Is that real technology? I don't care. It was funny. And yeah, having it be a prequel does make sense. The whole visual style. We're not in the warehouses. It can't have the creepy mood lighting. He hasn't even settled into the whole
live or die, make your choice. The game is simple. I want to play a game.
Like, he hasn't settled into figuring out who he is yet. I thought it was so weird. We're watching the movie.
I want to play a game.
That's usually the first thing I hear on the tape, or
Hello, whoever it is. I want to play a game.
like none of that had started yet. He was figuring out his trademarks he was going to do later. Okay, the movie feels different. At the end, it all makes sense. And I'm happy. I almost feel more positive about the movie after talking about the spoilers. Like, wasn't that shit kind of cool? Yeah, it kind of was. So yeah, those are nice, clever touches, because they could have easily had it have the same editing style and weird lighting, but because it's a prequel and he's still figuring out, I appreciate they did that, and it's less weird once you find that out. God, I'm overanalyzing this movie and making it seem like something super smart. It's a Saw movie, but I don't know, they're fun. I enjoy them. I gotta review all of them now. I want to talk about them all, even the shitty ones. So yeah, comment below, tell me what you thought of Jigsaw. Clearly, I was impressed enough by it. I had a good time with it, I'll say that. I enjoyed it. I don't care. It was fun. Tell me your thoughts on the movie, and thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later.